Oh boy. Hey Bob, welcome back. How was your vacation?
It wasn't a vacation. You left me outside.
Yeah, but then you did what?
I went to Japan.
To see the Olympics.
I did not see them. I took part in it.
Really?
Yes. First was the wrestling event with their robot champion. I was winning until it noticed me and it started moving. And then there was the archery event. It didn't go so good. So I went back to my room at the red light district and I played video games. So, what did I miss while I was gone?
Well...
What the
Hey everyone, it is Soul. Welcome back to Warcraft Weekly, the show that you're dealing with while you waited for the real one to come back. Use the navigation thingamajiggers to get where you want to go, and let's begin with corrections, which are always satisfying to do, because there's no shame in admitting that you messed up, but there's negative shame for getting it right the first time. The other day I took on the subject of gold carries and discussed their impact on the world of Warcraft, but I neglected to include rated PvP in the conversation, so here it goes. It can be pretty messed up. We have our opinions on gold carries in the world of Warcraft, but when it comes to PvP, the impact is direct because the boosting, that is, to win arenas and rated battlegrounds, it means other players are losing them. And considering how boosting works in rated PvP, that risks compromising the spirit of competition. In my observations, it's probably infuriating to see a fully geared gladiator fighting on the road while a healer happily caps the flag. That's right, I'm talking about you. But that's minor. That's just one person trying to enjoy their gains with, well, mixed results. The road to get the person that gear though, well, that road was paved with the blood of everyone who got steamrolled by these players and groups who participate in boosts because they want to get gold for reasons. One question I didn't ask in the earlier video, how do you stop these gold carries? This question is as old as internet gaming. It might not be as illicit as it used to be given WoW's attempts to crack down on real money transactions, but it's as active as ever, with a massive amount of gold circulating in the market, supercharged by WoW tokens, and with more kinds of endgame in WoW, there's more revenue streams to tap into. Taking the WoW token out of the equation sounds like the best possible solution, but the way I see it, all that would do is piss off the players like me who buy game time with gold, who are not just the whales. The spam from regular players who happen to play the role of part-time broker would mostly go away, and the gold-based broker market would collapse, only to be replaced with bots spamming illegal sites instead. The carry market would just go underground and you'd still get slammed by pre-mades. Now don't get me wrong, I don't want to leave you folks with a sense of dread. I do want to hear your own ideas of what you think would be the best long-term solution for WoW. This week the Chains of Domination campaign reached its epic conclusion in a festival of carnage with our champions drunk off the blood of both the wicked and the righteous. No, not really. I'm gonna tried really hard to not spoil you, but it basically ended with everyone sort of standing around and mingling. And by everyone, I mean everyone but Bane. Whoops. Seriously though, now that the campaign has finally ended, okay guys, you can resub, the time gating is gone. With the end of the campaign comes a kind of half response from the WoW team with regards to how character development in-game has been a bit lackey. More often than not, we as fans and talking heads fill in the gaps between the cinematics and one-liners that aren't instead explained in books outside of the game. I really liked what this chapter had to offer. Like, it wasn't spectacle, it wasn't a super high-res thing or epic gear. It was a bit of conversation between characters who weren't locked in battle or running into battle, and no one died at the end. We got to see the softer side of these hardened heroes of the Warcraft universe, and I found that really refreshing. It's also sort of a reminder that, boy, the bar is set like really low if we're impressed by a series of conversations. Ew. Now don't get me wrong, we're accustomed to the Warcraft style of storytelling, which does very little explanation while getting right to the point while fighting. The fact that these scenes were hidden from us up until now was intentional. The writers and narrative designers hoped to deliver something a little bit special, and they did. I think it was special, but I have more takeaways than that. First, this final chapter took players through the end of Sanctum of Domination Raid, even if they were not raiders, even if the final wing of Raid Finder won't be available until 2 weeks from now. I think that was really cool and inclusive. Second, I'm pretty happy that we got to see some solid character development here, but because it came now, it feels jarring after years of what I feel was an inconsistent story experience. If there was more investment into plot development in-game earlier, I think a lot of people would be on board with what's going on right now. We'd have more of an idea of what's going on and a stronger attachment to the characters that we've met along the way. I'm not talking about having dozens of hours worth of cutscenes and cinematics, but hey, maybe let's go the Blizzard style with talking heads and staying a while to listen. It gives us the opportunity to learn without feeling like the story has to force us to participate in every conversation ever. Third, and this is definitely my opinion, Shadowlands is just too big of a setting to tell so little. It's the afterlife. It's way more than anybody can chew. The entire history of the Warcraft franchise is here to fulfill any nostalgia fantasy, and there was never any hope of seeing all of it. An entire expansion could have been written just off of one zone without us needing to know all the inner workings of how the Shadowlands is actually supposed to work. What I mean is that the mystery of the Shadowlands could have been kept intact, at least for now. Instead, we got what we got, and don't get me wrong, I'm still grateful I'm still playing, but I really hope that in the next arc of the World of Warcraft, and I'm convinced that we're nearing the end of this long expansions long arc, I really hope it slows down so an actual story can be told. In my own weird way, I gave my take on the storytelling, but not the story itself thus far, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on these latest developments in a comment. Moving on, patch 9.1.5 is coming, duh. Seems like proximity sensors went off for data miners revealing tiny bits of information that mention a patch 9.1.5. This isn't surprising at the least. Of course there's going to be more patches and content, just like how eventually your food's going to be delivered, even if it might be a little bit late. Even if you have to call the delivery person to see if they're still there. Even if you have to go get the damn food yourself and you're just too hungry to be mad at this point. So instead of speculating the dates or what usually comes in this sort of patch, like a new Brawlers Guild or Time Locking or the Heritage Armor, whatever it is, let's get right to the wish list. We all have them. Maybe you can call it a list of demands or whatever, but let's talk up what we hope to see in this upcoming patch. You will hear more than a couple of repeats, but you know the only way to get results is to do the same thing over and over until it works. Brilliant. And of course, share your own 9.1.5 wants in a comment. Don't worry if it seems outlandish, because none of us are going to fully agree with everything anyway. Watch, I'm gonna show you. Let's start with skips. I'd like to see Blizzard continue to embrace the measured philosophy of lifting away some of the extra work that goes into alts. I say some because I do believe that there's a balance to strike between what I call the alt tax, reminiscent of the hybrid tax, and the notion that we want games to, quote, respect our time. I'm considering a discussion video on that subject in the near future because of, obviously, I take a sick pleasure out of making you mad or otherwise challenging you to consider other approaches in WoW's game design. So let's get specific to the upcoming patch. I want to skip to the Maw intro. I leveled all the alts that I care for, but I want it for the rest of you because I care. I'd like to only have to complete the Covenant campaigns once and then be able to skip it if I'm left to do a repeat. Small potatoes, but how about a skip to unlock the Archivist Codex faction too? The thought behind this is to skip the fluff so I can get on with the actual farming and participating in activities. Venari gives us teleports to the Tremaculum and to the Beast Warrens, so throw in Desmotarian too. That's where the raid entrance is for anyone who isn't sure. Of course, do the usual experience reduction that happens around this time. I think leveling's pretty fast as it is, but this is kind of a tradition too, so why not? There's a ton that I would love to see done to Torghast, but let's start with something easy. Let us level in Torghast. Here's how it would work. Just do the same thing that was done in the Shadowlands Alpha and Beta. Scale players' item level up to some minimum. I forgot what it was before, but just scale the item levels up. And if a player hasn't chosen a Covenant yet, give them a random one that rotates each day, just like during testing. At this point, the benefit of leveling in Torghast is not that big, because tradable Soul Ash sort of nullifies the biggest gain of adding this as a feature, but hey, more options can't hurt. So what about the actual character progression? We've seen some strides made as shown with reputation vendors whose wares are account-wide accessible, like sockets and conduit upgrades, or they're unlocked, and I'm talking about the Venari or the Archivist Codex perks. I think the biggest offender right now would be the Domination Shards, which are more or less limited to raiding and will probably be a less of a big deal after this patch, but it still sucks if you want to switch to an alt. The gulf between just starting out and being fully armed with shards and sockets is going to get wider with each passing week thanks to the fixed amount of Stygian Embers that one could get per week. I think more of them should drop from additional sources like the World Boss, Maw events, and even the mission table. The Domination gear is something that I'm a little bit less concerned over, because if you're on an alt in a raid, there's at least a better chance that some of that stuff that drops will be passed to you, maybe. It's the subtle sort of catch-up that we don't often talk about. Unfortunately, that doesn't work the same way with Embers unless you were to sneak your way into Mythic Clears, something pay to win. Speaking of currencies that are hard to get, Soul Cinders. I think they ought to get the Soul Ash treatment. Let them be traded to alts with a little tax and offer a little extra beyond the normal weekly lockout. By consequence, that'll satisfy the desire for account-wide progression of the box of many things. You're gonna run Torghast anyway, so it's no big deal. And if you happen to trade your resources down to alts, then you're not going to run Torghast anyway, so it's also not a big deal. Of course, feel free to share your wish list too. I would love to hear your thoughts. Max, the guildmaster of Top Rating Guild Limit, took a crew of fellow world first level raiders, streamers, and content creators to do a blind run of Final Fantasy XIV's endgame content, which made for a pretty entertaining show of gamesmanship. The first night for these 8 players was spent taking on an extreme trial, which you could consider as an early heroic raid in World of Warcraft. They had minimal gear and almost no prior raid experience outside of the story version of the encounter that you complete from leveling, unless they somehow skipped that too or just forgot. What's fun about Max's own Project 14 is that it's very cut and dry. He only cares about the challenge of beating up bad guys. He made it extremely clear during the stream. He wants the struggle. He went as far as imploring people in a twit longer that he doesn't want any backseating, no tips, no hints, and it showed. On stream, he was going over previous polls with the team just like he would when playing competitively while wondering about the basics. I at least found it fascinating because here is like a really skilled team with no experience being watched by thousands of gamers, many of which find this encounter pretty trivial these days. It's like a window into the past, but it's taking place now. Of course, there have been Dougie Downers who insist that Max and his team boosting and story skipping their way to the end compromises the genuine experience, but I don't think these folks quite understand what these players were looking for. They're just looking for a fight, and after this first night, the most important takeaway is that we all had fun. What's more, this blind team isn't as blind anymore after getting like a much better grasp of how abilities and mechanics work. I'm not certain how long their project is going to go, but I'm pretty sure that ultimate raids are their goal, and they're probably going to nail it. But I'd like to get some of your thoughts on this. Like, are you fine with this being gamers just being gamers, or is this an attack on your game by the pro gamers who are stomping on your experience? Please share a thought or two and let's move on. Now, I know that not everyone likes hearing about the constant stream of bad / cathartic news coming out of Activision Blizzard, but too freaking bad. Numerous stories have been coming out this week, like the unceremonious exits of several well-known Blizzard developers, including Jesse McCree, whose namesake brought us the likes of Makari in Argus and McCree in Overwatch. It makes you wonder about the purgings of the WoW references to Alex Cosby, like what are they going to do with the McCree character in Overwatch, or how are they going to reference Makari in WoW?
I am afraid our continued presence on
Awesome Town
has awoken more angry spirits.
This news came shortly after an article by Axios reveals a letter sent by the SoC Investment Group, which is an Activision shareholder. In so few words, they say that the company is not doing enough. But curiously enough, this article was not retweeted by the likes of a better ABK, which appears to reflect the opinions of Activision Blizzard workers. The takeaway from that, I guess, is to do more to listen to the people who run the company and not the ones who just finance it. Back on the Overwatch / Call of Duty news, more and more big corporate sponsors are pulling out of the Overwatch League and the Call of Duty League, whatever it is, for reasons related to the Activision Blizzard lawsuit. Before we get into the haha GG Blizzard talk, remember, these are multi-billion-dollar corporations that we're talking about. Wowhead covered this story, including numerous statements from these companies that share a particular kind of tone, like they'll continue to review progress made against their plan plans. They're reevaluating their limited marketing relationship with the Overwatch League, pause their sponsorship activities, revisit future plans and programs. You know what's probably going on in the background? Renegotiating. I'm sure at least some of these companies want to protect their integrity and don't want to be affiliated with, I don't know, a gang of sexists, but you know what else they see? Leverage. These companies want to advertise, and right now the Overwatch League is seen as less valuable, meaning advertising can now be renegotiated to be cheaper or can be more aggressively displayed. You want to think these companies are on our side, and I'm grateful for the gesture, but I know it's just optics, getting attention by not getting attention, posturing themselves into a better position when it's time to hit that negotiating table. Also on Kotaku and Polygon was some news that comes really as no surprise to anyone who's familiar with the gaming industry. Quality assurance staff at Activision Blizzard are not paid enough. Gasp. I'm not super familiar with the hierarchy over at Activision Blizzard or Blizzard Entertainment, but there are at least different kinds of QA. There's test leads and test analysts and compatibility testers and compliance testers, yada yada yada. I was personally told that QA over at Blizzard were all full-time employees, and according to the Polygon article, this may still be true. However, under other studios at Activision Blizzard, regular QA is filled by contractor companies who hire temporary workers. That's how I got started in the industry before being hired as a full-time lead, and then I was the one that was leading these teams of contract workers. And on that note, hey Higashi, I don't know if you're still watching the channel, but I hope you're doing well. Good talk. It's fun when I say hi to them every now and then. I mean, contractors, right? These contracting companies do the vetting and the benefits and the pay, or whatever those are, and they charge Blizzard or whoever a nominal fee. For example, they'll charge Activision Blizzard like $25 an hour for each person, pocket a chunk, a big chunk of that, and give the actual contract worker like $13 to $15 an hour. Isn't that just great? Don't get me wrong, that's pretty awful, but this is a huge thing, not just in gaming or tech, but any industry that can support it. Companies contract with hiring agencies all the time because they only need seasonal or temporary staff. It's especially predatory in the gaming industry though, where we, the bright-eyed and innocent, want to break in there, and there isn't much of any experience needed to poke around looking for holes in the world. And one last bit of news, because I prefer to end it talking about video games. The Horde Hall of Fame of Sanctum of Domination is going to close out this week, with 100 guilds having cleared it. Meanwhile, on the Alliance side, there are 12 as of this recording. Stellar. Between the Alliance and the tighter rules on who qualifies to make the Hall of Fame, we'll see Cross-Realm Mythic by the time Blizzard gives up and gets rid of the faction divide. Haha! And that's the show. So I ended what I think was the second full week of Coffee with Soul, where I invite you all over for a chat and I drink coffee. And I go off script, and I banter, and I deal with technical difficulties and stuttering, and I choose a pose for the thumbnail each afternoon. I'd still really like to hear some input from you folks as to what you think of it. Is it kind of annoying to see this many video posts? Am I repeating myself too much here on the weekly because of my 3-day-a-week rants? I'm interested because I want to make the channel just better. It's been a lot of fun though, having more new folks to drop by stream in the mornings to say hi, to leave comments and ask questions that I like, that I can immediately fire back. So go ham with your input. I want to hear it all. Lastly, I want to thank you all a ton for your supportive comments over the past week or so. I am a creator who does have hot takes and opinions, but I own those and I don't apologize for them. I'm also learning that there's a time and place for them. Sometimes it's okay to just talk about a subject and invite you over to discuss what are usually contentious issues, but not player housing. I mean, you get no choice around here. A very thankful thanks to our subscribers and patrons, including newcomer Greg. You folks have been extremely generous during tough times and tougher times over at Blizzard when it's hard to know where to place your faith, your monetary faith. I want to keep working my butt off, so maybe I can step it up and start producing from a cooler and more private space that I can defile with gaming swag. So please keep sending over that positive energy. Let me know of some cool games that might be worth checking out over on stream. I plan on doing a little write-up on Orcs Must Die, which was a good romp of fun, and it's part of my pledge to kind of peek out into the greater world of gaming and share my piece. So a big thanks again, thanks for coming, where we can just talk smack and have as little drama as we can get away with, and I'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.